And we are live. Happy Friday, everyone. Women of the World Network. Hello, hello, ladies. My name is Elle, and I have my special guest with us here today, one of our wow woman, Dr. K. Hi, Dr. K. Good morning.
Hi, Elle. It's such a pleasure to be here. Good morning. And well, good afternoon here from the East Coast, but thank you so much for having me today.
Awesome. I'm excited about our conversation and I'm glad you made it. Great to have you. So before we jump on, let me introduce Dr. K to you ladies. Dr. Keanna Ralph is an author, speaker, and strategist who realigns entrepreneurs and professionals with their authentic core selves so they can experience success and fulfillment in their lives and business. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Authenticity and being in our uniqueness and stepping in our uniqueness. So important, so important. So one of my favorite questions I love to ask is what makes you unique? Like what's your authentic self?
Of course, I love that question, right? Because I am all about all things authenticity. So that is right up my alley. And in fact, I believe that our authentic core selves is our superpower, right? And so I love that you asked that question. And what makes me unique is that, I am I'm a very open, transparent person. Mm-hmm. And I strive to live my life authentically. I not only teach it, but I live it. And, I went through a series of situations in my life where I experienced burnout and I experienced losing myself, whether or not the burnout caused it or I was in a relationship, as women, we can get caught up in things. It takes us off track. And before you know it, we're just like, wait, who am I and where am I? Right?
Yeah.
So life circumstances has taught me just the importance of being true to myself, being authentic, and I think that is really what distinguishes me from others is that I've learned through trial and error how to embrace my authentic core self, and not only do it for just my own personal self, but to help other people to do it for their lives and their businesses as well. And so I'm able to now, with that understanding, merge all of this together, right? And so now I'm able to support people in their business and their lives by helping them to get into realignment. And the cool part is that because of a recent pivot I made, I'm able to incorporate aspects of health and wellness into that, because I firmly believe and I have learned that part of the process towards being authentic involves being health conscious. You have to prioritize your well-being. It's in that space that you get more centered, and that allows you to get in alignment.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful. Love that. Yeah. Yes, well-being, self-care, so important. And I know it's one of our pillars in the community. I love that. So you mentioned pivot. Talk to us what did you have to pivot from and how did you manage to pivot and succeed?
Yeah. I don't know if we have enough time for the entire story, but I just try to give a short version of it. So this past year I think it's been challenging for everyone. But in the midst of going through, the global pandemic and here in the U.S. dealing with some civil unrest, and I know even globally we've encountered that as a community. But in addition to dealing with all that, I also had to deal with personal challenges, including health challenges. I went through, you name it, from having back challenges. To the point where I could barely walk at one point in the last year. And so I was in pain just to walk. And I remember I was walking past this elderly woman. She looked like I was at the hospital, and I was walking past her. She probably was maybe in her 80s, and and she was walking faster than me, and she looked at me and she smiled and she said, "Whoa!" Like she's just, I can tell she was trying to be nice, but she was like, "You're in worse shape than I am." And it was at that moment that I said, "Wow, I really need to do something different with my life." I can't be, having these kind of challenges. And I'm approaching 40, which I believe still is young. And at the same time, I want to make sure I have a body that corresponds with that belief, right? And so I have to do that corresponding action, and I have to make sure that I'm doing things health-wise that positions me to no longer put me in that place now, right? And so, and it wasn't only that, there was other things I had going on. They had, went to get a mammogram, they found something, I thought it was breast cancer, and it was just, it got crazy really fast, and it made me do a lot of self-introspection, and figure out, what changes I need to make personally so that I could thrive in life, and I could be happy about the life that I'm living. And so in November last year, I decided to sign up for a health and life coaching certification with the Health Coaching Institute. And that was the beginning of my journey. There was a series of events, I'm giving you the short version. So there was a series of events that continued up, even up until I would say March, April of this year, that eventually led me to completely pivot. I transitioned from the full-time job that I was at that particular time. And I decided, in that moment, with that transition, I decided to go back to what I love, which is helping business owners and professionals to build out to live out their purpose and their passion. And I realized through my own experience that part of that means being authentic. Part of that means prioritizing health. Part of that means, sometimes doing the hard work, right? So we think building a business is hard, which it is. I'm definitely hard, but what's even sometimes more difficult is doing the inner work that we need to do in order to be successful as a business owner. And I once heard someone say that, to the level that you prioritize your personal development, your self-development, is going to be to the level that you see your success in business. And so the two just kind of mesh together. So.
Love that. Yes, mindset, so important, so important. Yeah, and it's so interesting how it stops a lot. At some point, there is that level where a lot of us hit, and then that's all the inner work and mindset. I love that, and thank you for sharing. That the health challenges and your journey. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And it's challenging. Sounds challenging. Wow.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to make sure that I emphasize one other challenge that I failed to mention, and that was anxiety. So with everything happening and going on, of course, it would then lead to anxiety. It's just a perpetual cycle. When you begin to have health challenges and other things are going on, it takes the toll on you. Like we're human. And I think sometimes, we forget that, especially, people like you and myself when we're women entrepreneurs, we have this natural innate quality of, push, go, push, go. And, sometimes you forget the fact that you're human. And when life hits you, it can take a toll after a while. And that can show up in things such as anxiety or depression. And by the end of last year, I found myself dealing with both. And it was tough. It was very tough. And that was, another big part of the journey and why the pivot was necessary. Because as I began to work through my own journey, I realized I wasn't alone, that there were so many across the world that were also dealing with some of those same challenges. And I thought, got to do something about this. They say that your burden is oftentimes your ministry or your vocation is that path that you take, because you become so passionate about it that you are compelled to help others because you know what it's like to be there yourself, right? Sometimes you got to go through the fire so you can help save other people from it. And that's just my perspective on life. And that's why I knew coming out of this season, which was very challenging, I knew that I needed to do something different, that I could no longer be, just a business growth strategist, which is the hat I wore prior to that. But I had to take it a step further to really help people transform their lives.
Yeah, that is so beautiful, and that's so true. That's so true. Once we go through that, we can give that something that others need, that are going through the same thing. And and it's so important, exactly, not only to give but also be able to receive. And how many times we are so strong and we just brush it off, or we don't receive when it's given to us, or we don't see it as we should be receiving it right now. That right. And we have a comment here. Hi ladies, welcome for joining us, and thank you for joining us. So true, we forget we are humans sometimes, and we get in the mode of being givers but not receivers. That is so true.
Yes. Gotta, they often say, whenever you're on the airplane, I know anyone who has traveled has experienced this, they tell you to put your mask on first, right? Because if you don't give air to you first, then you could potentially not survive long enough to give air to your neighbor and the person next to you. And that's why things like self-care, it's so critical, because we can't risk losing you. We got to make sure that you are solid first, and then equip you to help others.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love this conversation. So it's so interesting how we love authenticity, and it's so important to be. And I know when I started being true, authentic to myself first, and stepping it, everything starts to just work out. Doors open up, the right people come into your life, and I'm not, why is it so hard sometimes to be vulnerable, or to just, is it because we are, of course, there is that maybe fear of judgment, others will judge me, that thinking, right? And, but we never know how many people went through similar things, how many people will actually resonate once we share that situation, and also how many people will keep silent until we start sharing, to help them, giving them that it's okay to share, or it's okay to be vulnerable like that, right?
Yes. No, I love that. And, it reminds me of the author, Brené Brown. I love her book.
Love Brené Brown.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah. She talks about daring to be brave. And I think, it's just a courageous act to be able to share from that place of vulnerability. And, I think the misconception is that people think that when you're being vulnerable at that level, that it's a sign of weakness, but it's the complete opposite.
It's complete opposite.
I feel like, because and to your point, it takes a level of self-confidence to be able to, be open and to be transparent in that way. Because you're doing it in a place where you understand too that it's bigger than you, right? The whole point of the share is that that as you're sharing, that someone is going to get the help that they need as a result of you being open and being honest and being real and truthful. And so it's kind of, that's why I love the whole idea of daring to be brave, because it's like it's a brave move, but it's a necessary move. And it's not until we can get to that place that we can make true impact, especially as entrepreneurs. That's where as leaders too, right? So because every entrepreneur is a leader, and or should be a leader, right? And so, I believe that's where the true effectiveness comes from, being able to operate from that space of vulnerability, which ties to authenticity, which really creates impact.
Yeah. And it's exactly that. It's exactly being brave, because, we don't know how, and we are ready to face that. When we are stepping into our power and being open and authentic, right, and vulnerable, we are ready to face whatever is coming next at us. right? And that's where the courageousness and brevity is to me, because, you know, otherwise we will not be able to open up. So I love conversations like this. So this is so fun. I love it. Yeah, so right, we are all what we have. Yes. Yes, ladies. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And thank you. Thank you for, you know, leaving your comments here. Yeah, feel free to share your thoughts with us. We are talking with Dr. K this morning, this Friday, and we will post links how to connect with Dr. K, one of our newest, wow, amazing women, ladies in the community. And please feel free to connect with her, find the time to connect with her, get to know her. And my next question is, who are the referral partners? So our ladies, so that we can refer to each other. And so when, you know, who are your referral partners for your business, Dr. K?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking that question. So, so I talked about this recent pivot, right, to I incorporate health and wellness now, and I love the part about helping people to do some of their inner work, right? But I'm going to be honest and say that the outer work, right? So like the actual exercise fees, and you know, while I know how to do that for myself, I do not proclaim to be an expert. So my referral partners would be anyone who is in the fitness industry, because I would love, you know, as I'm having these conversations and helping clients to get the breakthroughs that they need and help develop the plan of action that they need to take, I would love to have referral partners that could also support them in that part of the process, people that can show them what to do on the physical end to make sure that they are getting that movement in, right? Because that is so pivotal when you are creating what I like to call a soul nourishment plan. A soul nourishment plan, just like we have our a menu of what we do physically to replenish ourselves, our bodies. We have to have a plan to replenish our souls. And that soul nourishment plan should have a place for movement, right? And I use the word movement instead of exercise because sometimes there's a negative stigma attached to exercise. People see it as a burden, or just they may say something like, "Oh, I have to go exercise," right? But when you think of, I just have to move my body, I can dance, I can, you know, go for a nice nature walk. You know, when you seem to reframe it and see it a bit differently, it doesn't seem as much of a burden anymore. And so I would love to partner with anyone who's able to support people in that particular space.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I believe we have a newer member who is actually in house. I'll have to make sure and see and connect to ladies. But yes, that's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So thank you again, Dr. K, for joining us today. This was an amazing conversation. I know we can go for hours talking.
We can. And before we go, I did just want to make a note that I recently launched my first detox challenge, and I'm super excited about that. So the program is basically to help support anyone who is on that journey to get back to them. And the detox is it's unique in that it focuses on the mind, body, and soul. So we're not only getting you the right things to detoxify the body, but we're working on detoxing that mind, that soul, and putting the right things in, removing the unhealthy habits and replacing it with habits that will get you closer to being the best version of yourself. And so if you're interested, you can be able to get additional information at www.getbacktoyou.net, and it's get back to you, the number 2, getbacktoyou.net. And so would love to have you join us, or just connect to the community. You can do that as well by reaching out through that link.
Yeah, and we'll post that link to the website. We can post it in the comments as well. Yeah, I'm excited on that detox. Congratulations, that's amazing. I love the combination of everything. Soul, mind, and body. Love that. Love that. How long will that be?
So it's a 10-day challenge. It actually starts on Monday. So the sooner you can reach out, the better.
Yeah.
It starts on Monday and it runs to the 17th. So it's a 10-day detox program. And while we're focusing on it for that 10-day time frame, we're going to have a Facebook community that, you know, we'll all be able to connect and have, you know, be able to support one another, hold each other accountable. But this will be an ongoing effort. So, you know, so this is something that we're about changing lives, right? And this is just a jump start. This is just a step in the right direction. But ultimately, the goal is to change lives. And we know that that is a lifetime journey. And so we want to do life with you, right? This is, let's do life together.
Love it. Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. And like I said, ladies, we will post links how to connect to Dr. K in the comments here. Do connect with her and welcome to the community. Thanks for taking the time to chat this morning, Dr. K. And I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Bye. All right. Take care.
Mm-hmm.